I stare at the official-looking envelope on my kitchen counter, the county courthouse stamp glaring back at me. My fingers tremble as I slide my thumb under the flap, tearing it open. The coffee mug warms my palm as I unfold the document inside. Request for emergency conservatorship. The mug slips from my grasp, shattering against the tile floor. Coffee splashes across my bare feet, but I barely register the burn. My mother's signature sits at the bottom of the page. Dad's authoritative scrawl beside it, and there Tessa's hurried, slanted name. Mentally unfit to manage finances or property. The words swim before my eyes. 19 days. That's all it's been since we lowered Noah's tiny casket into the ground. Just 7 weeks since I buried Gavin. My husband, my son, both gone. I scan further down, my heart hammering against my ribs. The document specifically mentions Gavin's $930,000 life insurance policy, our family home, and the downtown investment property. Everything I have left. A sound escapes me, something between a gasp and a sob, as I sink to the floor beside the spreading puddle and broken ceramic. Noah's funeral flashes through my mind. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, my mother's eyes scanning the mourners as if taking attendance rather than paying respects. Tessa wearing a white sundress, at a child's funeral, her laughter carrying across the cemetery as she leaned against Dylan during the service. "We're all grieving, Delaney," my mother had said later, her voice sharp when I'd turned away from her attempted hug. "Don't act like you're the only one hurting." I hadn't responded then. What could I say? That I'd held my 10-year-old's hand as machines breathed for him for 27 days? That I'd watched his little chest rise and fall that final time while they were on a cruise, phones conveniently turned off? My hands shake as I reach for my cell phone. Naomi works at the courthouse. She'll know what this means, what I can do. They're claiming what? Naomi's voice rises through the speaker. "Delaney, they can't just..." The phone beeps with an incoming call. My mother's name flashes on the screen. "I'll call you back. It's her." I switch calls, pressing the phone hard against my ear. "Hello, Mother." "Delaney, dear." Her voice carries that artificial lightness she uses when she wants something. "I wanted to check if you received our paperwork." "You mean the request to declare me mentally unfit?" "Yes, I have it right here." I press my palm against the cool tile floor, anchoring myself. "It's for your own good, sweetheart. You're not thinking clearly. After everything with Gavin and Noah, how could you be? We're just trying to help until you're stable again." The trembling in my hands stops. Something crystallizes inside me, hard and sharp-edged. "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have about who you really are." A pause. "Don't be dramatic. This is temporary." I laugh, a hollow sound that bounces off the kitchen walls. For 15 years, I've been their safety net, the responsible one. When Dad's business faltered, Gavin and I covered the $40,000 shortfall. When Tessa couldn't hold a job, I bought the investment property downtown and let her live there rent-free. "Just until she gets on her feet," Mom had said. That was 3 years ago. If granted, this conservatorship would give them control of everything: my home, Gavin's insurance money, every financial decision. They'd been watching me grieve, calculating their moment. "We love you," my mother says when the silence stretches too long. "We just want what's best." I look at the shattered pieces of my favorite mug, coffee seeping into the grout between tiles. "No," I say, my voice steadier than I've felt in weeks. "You want what's mine." I end the call and stare at the court document, reality settling cold and hard in my stomach. They never saw me as capable, only as a resource to exploit. And now, when I'm at my most vulnerable, they've decided to take it all. Later that day, I tear through my filing cabinet, fingers fumbling with color-coded folders. Somewhere in this meticulously organized system is the property deed Miles needs for tomorrow's meeting. The irony doesn't escape me being called financially irresponsible when I've maintained perfect records for 15 years. My hand bumps something hard at the back of the drawer. Gavin's old phone. I'd forgotten I stored it here after the funeral, unable to bear scrolling through our last messages. On impulse, I press the power button. The screen flickers to life, battery somehow still holding charge. A notification appears, a screenshot Gavin took but never showed me. I tap it open and freeze. It's a text conversation between Tessa and Mom from just 2 weeks after Gavin's death. "Mom, once we get guardianship, the apartment's yours. I'll take the house." Tessa, "What about all that insurance money?" Mom, "We'll discuss distribution after the hearing. Focus on documenting her episodes for now. The phone slips from my grasp. I sink to the floor, hand pressed against my mouth to stifle a sound between a gasp and a scream. Noah was still in the hospital then, still fighting for his life while they plotted. They never intended to help me heal. They were circling like vultures, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, I entered the law offices of Turner and Associates, clutching a manila folder with white knuckles. Miles Turner rises from behind a massive oak desk when his assistant shows me in. Wall-to-wall law books line the shelves behind him, leather-bound sentinels standing guard. "Mrs. Hart, please sit down." His voice is deeper in person than it was on the phone. I perch on the edge of a leather chair, folder trembling in my lap. I've reviewed the initial filing. Miles opens a thick binder. There are several concerning elements here. He points to a document. This medical affidavit was signed by Dr. Lorraine Weber. Do you know her? Mom's bridge partner. My throat tightens. She's a dermatologist. Miles raises an eyebrow. A dermatologist providing psychiatric assessment. Interesting. He flips to another page. They've scheduled an emergency hearing for Friday. 3 days from now? My heart pounds against my ribs. They're claiming you're both unstable and financially irresponsible. His finger traces down a list of allegations. Yet they never requested a proper psychological evaluation. This is all hearsay evidence. I slide Gavin's phone across the desk, the screenshot displayed. They've been planning this since before Noah died. Miles studies the image, jaw tightening. While you were in the hospital with your son. Watching me grieve, calculating their moment. The words taste bitter on my tongue. Miles closes the binder. Let's discuss exactly what's at stake here. He lays out the situation with brutal clarity. The conservatorship would give them complete control over Gavin's $930,000 life insurance payout money meant to secure my future after losing our family's primary income. They could force the sale of your home, Miles continues, making notes on a legal pad. My chest constricts. The home where Noah took his first steps. Where Gavin built that ridiculous treehouse, it took him 3 weekends to finish. Each memory flashes before me, tied to rooms and walls I might lose. And your sister and her husband would likely gain permanent ownership of the investment property downtown. The property I bought, that I let Tessa live rent-free for 3 years. My voice cracks. If granted, this conservatorship could remain in place for years. They would control every financial decision in your life. The weight of it all crashes down. A sob escapes before I can stop it. I press my palms against my eyes. I haven't even had time to grieve properly. Noah's been gone 19 days. 19 days. The tears come faster now. How am I supposed to fight this while I'm still planning memorial services? Miles hands me a box of tissues. When I look up, his expression has softened. This screenshot is powerful evidence of their true motives. He taps Gavin's phone. The judge needs to see this. He pulls a framed photo from his desk drawer, a young boy with Miles's eyes, grinning from a hospital bed. I lost my son to leukemia 7 years ago. I know what grief looks like versus instability. He slides his business card across the desk. I'll represent you pro bono. We'll fight this together. For the first time since opening that envelope, I feel a flicker of hope. As I drove home that night, I wondered if I should confront my family directly about what I'd found, or keep it as evidence for court. Exposing that I knew might give me emotional satisfaction, but surprising them in court might be more effective. When someone betrays your trust during your darkest hour, is it better to show your hand or keep your cards close to your chest? The next week, after the first hearing, my phone rings for the 3rd time today. Another friend checking if I'm doing okay. Amanda's voice carries the same careful tone as Jen's did earlier, too gentle, too concerned. Your mom called me, she finally admits. She said you've been having episodes? I grip the counter, knuckles whitening. I'm grieving, Amanda. Not unstable. Of course, she backtracks quickly. I just wanted to check in. After we hang up, I peer through my living room blinds. Across the street, Tessa and Dylan are unloading a leather sectional from a rental truck, carrying it into my investment property like they already own it. Yesterday, it was a glass dining table. The day before, a king-sized bed frame. Mrs. Levine from next door walks over to chat with them. Tessa tosses her hair, gestures toward my house, her mouth forming words I can read even from here, taking care of things while Delaney recovers. My teeth grind together. They're building their narrative piece by piece, brick by brick, constructing walls around me while I'm still bleeding. The night stretches endless before me. Sleep refuses to come, as it has since the funerals. At 3 in the morning, I wander the hallway, pausing outside Noah's room. The door remains closed. I haven't been able to pack anything away. His baseball glove still sits on his dresser. Gavin's clothes still hang in our closet. When I tried sorting through Gavin's ties last week, my chest constricted so tightly I couldn't breathe. I collapsed on our bedroom floor, gasping like a landed fish, certain I was dying. The panic took 20 minutes to subside. But I can't afford these moments of weakness now, not when every tear might become evidence against me. I start documenting everything. My morning coffee, mail collection, balanced checkbook. Every normal, mundane task captured in photos dated and time-stamped. I keep a journal, recording my thoughts with clinical precision. I downloaded an app to record phone calls, especially from family. The doorbell rings Tuesday afternoon. When I open it, Mrs. Patterson stands on my porch, a cloth-covered basket in her weathered hands. "Sourdough," she says simply, pressing it into my arms. "Still warm." I blink back unexpected tears. "Thank you." She pats my arm, her eyes kind but not pitying. "I know what grief looks like, dear. You take all the time you need." Some people mistake grief for weakness because they've never loved deeply enough to experience it. The bread's yeasty scent fills my kitchen as she leaves. For the first time in weeks, I feel hungry. That momentary peace shatters 2 days later when a car door slams in my driveway. Through the window, I spot my parents walking up the path. No warning, no call. My pulse quickens as I unlock the door. "We were in the neighborhood," Mom says, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Dad follows, eyes sweeping the living room, assessing, cataloging. "You should have called first?" I say. "We're concerned," Mom replies, setting her purse on my coffee table like she still lives here. "The neighbors say you barely leave the house." "I'm working remotely," I responded, gesturing to my laptop. "I have deadlines." Dad clears his throat. "Look, Delaney, this will all be easier if you just cooperate. Fighting this will only drain what's left of Noah's insurance money." The words hit like a slap. Insurance money. My son was reduced to a dollar amount. "You didn't come here when I needed help bathing my son in his hospital bed." I say, my voice steady despite the heat building behind my eyes. "You didn't come when I had to plan 2 funerals alone. You only came when you smelled money." Mom's expression hardens. "See how irrational you're being? This is exactly why we're concerned." Something crystallizes inside me. I don't need to convince them I'm stable. I only need to prove it to the court. They've already decided what they want to believe. "I think you should leave," I say, walking to the door and holding it open. "My lawyer will handle all communication from now on." "Lawyer?" Dad sputters. "You're wasting—" "Goodbye." They leave, exchanging glances that promise this isn't over. But something has shifted inside me. For the first time since opening that envelope, I feel certain ground beneath my feet. Naomi arrives that evening with a bottle of wine and courthouse insider information. "Judge Harrison's been assigned your case," she says. "He's fair but formal. Expect everything by the book." Miles calls the next morning. "I'm working through the weekend on this," he says. "We've got solid counter-arguments." Even Mrs. Patterson stops by, bearing another loaf. "I've watched you these past months," she says firmly. "If they need character witnesses, count me in. Where my family dismisses and manipulates, these people listen. Where my parents see weakness, they see courage. Their support forms a scaffold around my crumbling edges. I find myself standing straighter, making eye contact again, speaking with a voice that no longer wavers. On Monday next week, I undergo an independent psychological evaluation. The doctor is thorough but kind, and her conclusion is unequivocal. I am grieving but entirely competent. Miles calls with news that evening. "The judge rejected a similar case last year," he says, excitement in his voice. "Some son tried claiming his mother was incompetent after she refused to finance his failing business." The morning of the second hearing arrives. I dress in a charcoal gray suit, pin my hair back neatly, apply minimal makeup. The folder containing the screenshot of my mother's and sister's text exchange sits in my leather portfolio. At the courthouse steps, I pause, taking a deep breath. Through the glass doors, I can see them, my parents, Tessa, and their attorney huddled in conversation. They haven't noticed me yet. I straighten my shoulders and pull the door open. Their heads turn simultaneously, eyes widening as I approach, the evidence of their betrayal held securely in my hands. The courthouse bench feels cold beneath me as I sit beside Miles, my leather binder organized with color-coded tabs. Each section contains proof of my family's betrayal, bank statements showing years of financial support to my parents, property records for the apartment Tessa lives in rent-free, Noah's medical records documenting my constant presence while they vacationed. All rise, the bailiff announces. Judge Lowell enters, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Her expression remains neutral as she scans the courtroom, taking in my family seated across the aisle, their attorney whispering urgently into my mother's ear. "Miss Hart, please present your evidence," Judge Lowell says after preliminary statements. I stand, my knees surprisingly steady. "Your Honor, I've prepared documentation showing my consistent financial responsibility." I walk forward, placing the first folder on her bench. These bank statements show 15 years of financial support provided to my parents, including a $40,000 loan when my father's business struggled that was never repaid. My mother shifts in her seat. I continue, voice clear and calm. The second folder contains property records for the downtown apartment my sister has occupied for 3 years without paying rent. I've covered all maintenance costs and property taxes during this time. The judge flips through the documents, her brow furrowing. The third folder lands heaviest. These are my son Noah's medical records. My voice catches slightly, but I push forward. The sign-in logs show I was present every day of his 27 days in intensive care. You'll note my parents visited twice, my sister once. Judge Lowell's eyes narrow as she compares the visitor logs. My mother suddenly stands. "She's putting on an act, Your Honor. You should see her at home crying constantly, barely functioning. This courtroom performance proves how manipulative she can be." The judge's gavel cracks sharply. "Mrs. Hartley, you will not speak out of turn in my courtroom. Sit down immediately." My mother's face flushes as she sinks back into her seat. Their attorney rises, smoothing his tie. "Your Honor, we have evidence of Miss Hart's emotional instability." He produces several photographs. These show the defendant sobbing uncontrollably at her son's grave lying on the ground, clearly distraught beyond normal grief. Judge Lowell examines the photos, then looks up, removing her glasses. "Counselor, you're submitting pictures of a mother grieving at her child's grave as evidence of instability?" "I find nothing abnormal about these images. They show a parent mourning her son." The attorney stammers. "But, Your Honor, what I find concerning," Judge Lowell continues, "is your client's financial interest in this case. Mrs. Hartley, Mr. Hartley, what exactly is your interest in your daughter's assets?" My father stares at his hands. My mother's mouth opens and closes without sound. When the judge asked if I wanted to countersue for legal fees and emotional damages, I hesitated. Would pursuing maximum penalties bring closure, or would simply winning my freedom be enough? At what point does justice become revenge, and when does mercy become weakness? Miles squeezes my hand under the table. "Your choice," he whispers. Mrs. Patterson takes the stand next, her 70-year-old frame straight as a pin. She adjusts her cardigan and looks directly at the judge. "I've lived next door to Delaney for 8 years. Since her husband and son died, I've watched her maintain her home, speak clearly with delivery people, and process her grief with remarkable grace." She cries, "Yes, but that's what humans do when they lose their family." Naomi's affidavit comes next, describing my composed reaction upon receiving the court papers. "Despite obvious emotional distress, Miss Hart immediately sought legal counsel and documented the situation," Miles reads. "Her response was measured and appropriate given the circumstances." The psychological evaluation follows Dr. Winter's clinical assessment confirming I'm experiencing normal grief response without impairment to decision-making capacity. Judge Lowell studies each document carefully, occasionally glancing at me with what appears to be growing respect. The rigid set of her shoulders softens slightly. "The court finds these testimonies compelling," she says. Miles stands again. "Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence." He holds up a printout. A screenshot of text messages between Mrs. Hartley and her daughter Tessa, discussing how they would divide Miss Hart's assets once they gained control. Tessa's leg begins bouncing beneath the table. She tugs at her earring, her eyes darting around the courtroom. My father, who maintained unwavering confidence throughout the hearing, suddenly finds the floor fascinating. His shoulders curve inward as if trying to shrink from view. But it's my mother whose mask cracks completely. Her carefully applied makeup can't hide the twitching muscle in her cheek, or the way her lips press into a bloodless line when Judge Lowell asks, "Mrs. Hartley, did you discuss dividing your daughter's assets while her son was still in the hospital?" "I think we need a short recess," Judge Lowell announces, gathering her notes. "We'll reconvene in 15 minutes for final arguments and my decision." As she exits the courtroom, I catch the grim set of her mouth. For the first time since receiving those papers, I breathe without feeling like I'm underwater. I gather my notes, hands steadier than they've been in weeks, while Miles whispers something about finding water. The moment he steps away, they pounce. Mother, father, and Tessa corner me in the quiet hallway, their faces pinched with desperation. Father forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Mother keeps glancing nervously at the courtroom door. "Delaney, sweetheart." Mother begins, her voice honey-sweet. "This has all gotten so out of hand. We should settle this as a family, not air our private matters in court." Father nods, stepping closer. "We've discussed it. We're willing to withdraw the petition entirely. All we ask," Mother continues, her eyes darting to Tessa, "is that you sign over the investment property to your sister. She's made it her home after all." I notice how Tessa's fingers twist anxiously at her wedding ring, the same nervous habit she's had since childhood when plotting something. "You wouldn't want everyone to hear about your emotional outbursts at the hospital, would you?" Father adds, his voice dropping. "The night nurse told us how you screamed at the doctor when he suggested removing Noah from life support." Tessa touches my arm. I resist the urge to flinch. "We're still family, Delaney. Family sticks together." Weeks ago, this ambush might have worked. But not today. I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone, tapping the screen twice before turning it toward them. The recording app displays 1:23 and counting. "I'm recording this conversation," I say, my voice calm. The shock on their faces brings a warmth to my chest I haven't felt since before Gavin died. Just like I recorded Mother's call the day I received your court papers. Mother's mouth opens, then closes. "I have copies of all the texts between you two." I look directly at Mother and Tessa. "The ones where you divided up my assets while Noah was still fighting for his life. I paid your bills for 15 years. I let Tessa live rent-free in my property. I did that out of love, and you repaid me by trying to take everything while I buried my husband and son." Father starts to speak, but Miles appears beside me, a paper cup of water in each hand. "Is there a problem?" he asks, eyes narrowing as he takes in the scene. "They offered to withdraw the petition if I sign over the investment property to Tessa," I explain, nodding toward my still recording phone. Miles sets down the cups on a nearby bench. "What you're doing constitutes attempted coercion," he tells them, professional but stern. "I suggest you return to your seats before I'm forced to bring this recording to the judge's attention." Their retreat is swift and silent. Mother's shoulders hunch forward, Tessa's eyes fill with tears, and Father's face flushes dark red as they hurry back to their attorney, huddling together in urgent whispers. Miles touches my elbow. "You okay?" I nod, surprised to find it's true. I am. When court reconvenes, afternoon light streams through the tall windows of the wood-paneled courtroom, casting long shadows across the floor. The judge adjusts her glasses, reviewing her notes. "Final arguments," she announces. Miles rises, confident and prepared. "Your Honor, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit C." The bailiff hands the judge a folder. Inside is the screenshot, the damning text exchange between my mother and sister. "Objection." Their attorney interrupts, rising halfway from his chair. "This evidence is being presented out of context." The context, Miles counters, is that these messages were sent while Miss Hart's 10-year-old son was in a coma following the armed robbery that took his father's life. The judge studies the messages, her expression hardening. I can't stay silent anymore. I stand, ignoring Miles's surprised glance. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" She nods, eyes curious. "While my son was in a coma, they were dividing my assets." My voice breaks, but I push forward. "While I was holding his hand, praying he'd wake up, they were planning to take my home." Tessa starts to speak, but the judge silences her with a sharp strike of her gavel. I'm not unfit. I continue, looking directly at the judge. I'm grieving. There's a difference that my family never understood. The judge sets down her pen. I've heard enough. I'm dismissing this petition with prejudice, citing disturbing evidence of financial motivation. My mother's face pales to ash. Tessa begins crying, not the delicate tears she used at Noah's funeral, but ugly, frustrated sobs. Father stares at the floor, refusing to meet my eyes. Furthermore, the judge continues, I'm considering sanctions against the petitioners for what appears to be a frivolous and predatory filing. My clerk will contact all parties regarding a hearing date. Relief floods through me, but beneath it swirls uncertainty. I haven't decided what to do about the investment property. Tessa still lives there. Part of me wants to evict her immediately, but another part hesitates, wondering if that makes me as vindictive as they've been. As my family gathers their belongings, preparing to flee the courtroom, I notice something left behind on their table, a framed family photo they'd submitted as evidence of our once happy family. My mother's voice echoes in my memory. This proves how close we were before her instability. I walk over and pick it up. It's from my wedding day. Gavin and I stand in the center, Noah just a toddler in his arms. My parents flank us, Tessa beside them, all smiling. I study each face, remembering how Gavin had whispered, "Smile, sharks," to make me laugh just before the shutter clicked. I trace my finger over Gavin's face, then Noah's, and deliberately set the photo back down on the table as I walk away. They wanted everything I had, but they can't have my memories. Those belong only to me, and in 6 months I will reassure even better protection for what is mine. Morning light streams through pine-framed windows as I pour coffee into a handmade mug. 6 months in the Colorado Rockies has transformed more than my address. The cabin's wooden porch creaks beneath my bare feet as I settle into what has become my daily ritual, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold and pink. I breathe in crisp mountain air, something I never had time for before. Back then, my mornings consisted of hurried emails about Dad's business troubles, or Tessa's latest financial emergency. Now my phone rarely rings before 9. My laptop waits inside, client spreadsheets organized by priority instead of family crises. Working remotely gives me freedom I never knew I needed. Every afternoon, I hike different trails, my legs growing stronger while my heart slowly mends. At night, I fill journal pages with memories of Gavin's laugh and Noah's terrible knock-knock jokes rather than legal strategies and betrayals. To healing, I whisper to the mountains, raising my mug in silent toast. Later, while sorting through the mail, my fingers brush against a certified letter. The return address shows my parents' home in Vermont. My hands remain steady as I slide my thumb under the flap, so different from that day 7 months ago when the courthouse envelope reduced me to shaking. The coffee stays safely in my mug this time. Inside, 2 pages of my mother's precise handwriting. An apology. Regret for actions taken out of misguided concern. A request to reconnect on whatever terms feel comfortable. The old Delaney would have immediately called, desperate to mend fences regardless of who burned them. I fold the letter carefully and place it in my desk drawer. I'll respond eventually, but not today. Some wounds need time before they're ready for bridges. The chime of an incoming video call pulls me from my thoughts. Miles and Naomi appear on screen, holding champagne glasses. "Happy 6-month freedom anniversary," Naomi calls. Miles raises his glass. 6 months since Justice Carter dismissed their petition with prejudice. Still one of my favorite courtroom moments. I laugh, the sound no longer feeling foreign in my throat. "Any new cases inspired by mine?" 3, Miles says, pride evident in his voice. "All families trying to use grief as leverage for financial gain, all dismissed." Naomi leans closer to the camera. "By the way, Tessa and Dylan finally moved out of your property last week. Apparently living somewhere without family subsidies didn't appeal to them." We toast to finding strength in broken places before ending the call, warmth lingering after their faces disappear from my screen. The afternoon sun bathes the living room in amber light as I carefully unwrap 2 framed photographs. Gavin's broad smile as he hoists Noah onto his shoulders at the lake. Noah's gap-toothed grin on his last birthday. I place them on the stone mantel, then add a 3rd frame, a vibrant blue butterfly I photographed on my first mountain hike, perched on a wildflower that had pushed through a crack in the rocks. Tomorrow I finalize paperwork donating the investment property to New Horizons, a nonprofit supporting parents navigating child loss. The downtown building that became a symbol of family betrayal will house grief support groups and temporary accommodations for families with children in long-term hospital care. Outside my window, I've marked spots where I'll plant 2 blue spruce trees next spring, one for Gavin, one for Noah. A proper mountain memorial where I can sit and remember them without cemetery regulations or judgment. They called me unfit when I was simply grieving. But grief isn't weakness, it's evidence of love. And love, even when it hurts, makes us stronger than those who've never risked their hearts enough to feel its loss. As I seal the donation papers for the property my family fought so hard to take from me, I wonder, is forgiveness always necessary for healing? Or is there freedom in simply releasing the expectation that some people will ever understand your pain? What would you do? Try to rebuild bridges that others burned, or use those ashes to forge a new path entirely your own?